And Hulk Hogan being like, I only took steroids 2 times, and both times were to recover from injuries.
You know what really makes us mad? Is wasting money on CDs with only 1 or 2 good songs.
Yeah. Talk about punk.
What's up, posers? Welcome to Punk Lotto Pod. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley.
I'm your other co-host, Dylan Hensley.
And this is the show where we choose 1 year at random and select one punk, hardcore, emo, or punk-adjacent album from that year to discuss. And this week's episode is a Patreon-sponsored episode, and we will get into that in a little bit. But if you head on to patreon.com/punklotopod, you can sign up for our $1 tier where you get access to all of our weekly bonus audio. Where last week we did a bracketology on the albums of the year 1995. Very stacked year of records there. Some of the biggest name records we've ever had in a bracket together. So it was fun. Fun little head-to-head there. But also, we have launched a new tier. We discussed it last week. We were talking about it, what we were going to do, and it is now live and available for everyone to sign up. It is a $5 tier. It is the Producer and Listening Club tier. So what that means is for $5 a month, you will get your name said on the show every single week. We're going to do a little producer section. We'll just say, these are the producers of our show. And we can say your name. We can plug something that you do, like if you have a blog or a podcast or something else that you want to push, we could say that as well. But yeah, every episode you'll get said. So it'll be 4 times a month minimum. Some weeks have 5. And also, for the Listening Club, we are going to do a monthly book club style Zoom chat where we all get on Zoom together and we talk about the same album. We'll choose something in advance and then we'll, say this is this month's Listening Club record and, listen to it, and then we'll get on the chat and we'll all do a convo about it. And if you're unable to attend it live, but you still want to see it, we'll make the video available afterwards. So for the $5 tier, people be able to see the conversation at least. And of course, our $10 tier, which gets you an album that we devote an entire episode to, like the one we're going to do today. But yeah, patreon.com/punklotopod. Do not sign up through the Apple iOS Patreon app. They are going to start charging a fee that no other service will be charging. So sign up through a web browser on your computer. If you have an Android phone, I said Android phone. I turned Australian for a minute there.
Yeah, Android. On your Android phone. Telephone.
Android phones are supposedly fine. Don't sign up to the Apple app. You'll get charged more. And it sucks. We don't want you to get charged more because it's on you. It's on the user who gets charged, not taken out of ours. So it's a weird system they got there. But yeah, lots going on the Patreon. So check it out there. All sorts of bonus audio out there too. Every week, something new. And then many times a month, extra audio. So yeah, I am excited. I guess we probably should have decided on what record we were going to do for our first Listening Club, but we didn't. So, oh well, I'll cut that out.
Sign up and you can find out.
Yeah. This week, we are sponsored by our patron, Phillips. Didn't want to say your full name. Didn't quite know what name you wanted me to give there, but we got a sign up earlier this month, and we're like, hell yeah, let's do this. So before we read his thoughts and why he wanted us to choose this record, let's talk about the year 1995. So on the Patreon, we did discuss quite a few albums already. So I guess for this audio, we should talk about the albums we didn't mention over there. And according to RateYourMusic.com's punk charts, the number 1 punk album of 1995 is not a punk record. So yeah, we got Swans, we got PJ Harvey, we got the Deftones. No, none of those are punk. Sorry.
Yeah. Only one of those I would want to listen to is the PJ Harvey record, too.
Yeah.
We got some Guided by Voices, so also not punk.
Yeah.
Got some Faith No More, so yet again, not punk. Hum, at least that's post-hardcore to a degree.
Yeah.
That Supergrass record is not a punk record, but it's more punk than some of the other things on here, so... throw it out there, I guess.
Yeah, Don Caballero 2, instrumental, math rock, a little post-hardcore in there as well.
Still Caballero. And
we have the Sunny Day Real Estate LP 2, That one. That's an emo record. That's a real record. We also have Blink. Not Blink-182, but Blink. Their album Cheshire Cat. That's a punk record. That's probably like besides ones we skip, like one of the more punk albums. Elastica. Never listened to them. I saw them on a clip of them on TikTok, and I was like, I should listen to Elastica.
Yeah, that record's good.
Yeah?
Yeah. Surprising. And more punk. Yeah, more punk than you expect it to be. Like, it has that Britpop tag, but there's a lot of fast stuff on there, and it's a good record. Probably one of the most underrated of the Britpop bands.
Sleater-Kinney released their self-titled record. That record's fine. I didn't put it on a bracket because I wasn't sure if you'd actually listen to that one or not.
I think I have.
I also wasn't.
Maybe not.
I wasn't as familiar with it that I didn't feel like really talking about it because I was like, I don't know what I would say about that record.
Yeah. Yeah. If it was called The Doctor, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely listen to that record, but dig me out some of the other ones. But I don't know if I've listened to the first Sleater-Kinney record.
We have Team Dresch, Personal Best, really good record. We got Marauders, Master Killer. I think I've tried to listen to that record before. I couldn't finish it. It's like a classic of like metalcore and New York hardcore. I did not like the tiny bit of that record I heard, and I just didn't finish it because I was like, okay, just another example of New York hardcore that I don't like.
Yeah. It was an Earthcrisis record, Destroy the Machines. That's a good one.
Yeah. AFI's Answer That and Stay Fashionable, the one where they're mocking the Reservoir Dogs album cover. I've never understood why they did that. That was their first record too, right?
Was it the first?
It is. It's the very first record. So like, why? Why do that? In 95, that movie wasn't not even that old. It just feels weird to do a parody of that for your first cover. When also like they later became a completely different kind of band. Like I can't imagine them doing that now, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that band has reinvented themselves like 4 times.
Yeah. Some other good records that came out that year. We have Systems Overload by Integrity. We have Hello Bastards by Lifetime. Excellent record there. The Muffs, Blonder and Blunder. Excellent record. That was the second Muffs album. Yeah, 95. I mean, besides all the ones we talked about on the Patreon, like it's a really strong year. You know, lots of really good stuff here.
Yeah, 94 and 95 are really strong years. I have not found as much from 96 that I'm like thrilled by, other than the stuff I already know. Yeah, when I deep dived on 95, I heard a lot of stuff that I hadn't really listened to before. I was like, this is great. This is a really good year. And I think it's one of those years where we can go reasonably far back in the charts and still find like solid records, like a Boy's Life record, and there's a Shelter record, and that are like not just solid records, but are also like names that you recognize. Choke Bore, Smoking Popes, you know, there's the first Braid record, which is maybe not great, but
yeah. I was trying to think though. So like the album that we're talking about today is a hardcore record, and I thought about putting those filters in just to see kind of what we get in that vein.
There's a 108 record.
There's a Civ record. I mean, I don't know if... Well, they tag this on New York hardcore. Would you really consider that Civ record, though, like a New York hardcore album? I personally wouldn't. Set your goals. I'd just call it like a melodic hardcore album. Like, it doesn't feel especially New York. It actually is very poppy, very pop punky.
Do they... Rate Your Music doesn't have a youth crew category, does it?
I don't know that I've ever seen one, no.
No, it doesn't. I think that it's appropriate to call that Civ record a youth crew record. It's probably like the most pop youth crew record.
Yeah.
So I guess like using the term New York hardcore gets you in closer into that lane. But youth crew isn't strictly New York hardcore.
Right.
It's an oversight of Rate Your Music to not have youth crew, because there is a pretty distinct sound. And then I guess it's redundant compared to melodic hardcore, but this website also has like stenchcore. And like that's just crust.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of or like label specific or scene specific terms like C86 being on here, or something like Paisley Underground being, it's like that's kind of a scene. It wasn't, not all of those bands really sounded the same. Not a killer year for hardcore though.
Not really. Like
there's some really good stuff, but it's not super stacked.
Yeah, like we got Slapshot, 16 Valve Hate, I guess that 88 Fingers Louie is pretty hardcore. It's melodic hardcore. Strong Arms Atonement came out that year. That's a solid record. 7 Seconds, The Music, The Message. A little bit more melodic side of things. Yeah, it's funny. It feels like we're kind of between years because we know stuff was happening in hardcore around this time period. So maybe just 95 in general is not like the hot year out of that little stretch of the 90s hardcore. But
yeah, we've got an Inside Out EP, a Refused EP. We got the Spaz Charles Bronson split EP. There's a Snapcase EP. So there's kind of some of your in-between material. There's a Locust Man as the Bastard split, but not really any like major EPs that are like, almost albums in their own right.
Yeah.
None of these are really that recognizable, other than the splits are probably kind of significant for Power Violence.
Yeah, I'm digging deep, and it's not a lot. It's funny. It's supposed to be just like the year where like everybody toured or something like that. Everybody was busy on the road, too busy to actually release music that year that really stands out, or at least stands the test of time. Yeah, interesting year. Good year overall, I think, for sure, but maybe not the best year for hardcore.
That makes me curious about what 96 is like, because in my head, 96 is not great for hardcore either. Very proud of you, the AFI record. Propagandhi. There's an Integrity record, EP, Humanity is the Devil. I guess there's a Madball album.
Yeah. Oh, there's a Madball album in 94 too. Set It Off. It was 94.
Yeah. There's a Strung Out record, and I guess that's melodic hardcore. Hatebreed EP. I think 97 is pretty significant for hardcore.
I think 97 is significant for a lot of different things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think 97 overall is where the 90s really picks up again.
All right, so this episode is, like we said, a Patreon-sponsored episode. And Philip selected for us to discuss Hardcore Pride by 10 Yard Fight. Stats on the band. They formed in 1995, and they were from Boston, Massachusetts. This album, yeah, kind of, has one of those very annoying release dates that every website has a different date for. So, according to where you look, it either came out in 95, 96, or 97. That's a pretty big range. I don't know how 97 got in there as an option. I don't think it's 97 at all. Doing some research, there's a chance it probably is 96 since the band started in 95, but we went with 95. Wikipedia has the date April 15th, 1995. No citation on that. I don't know where they got that number from, but it's out there. And I think Spotify says it's 95 too. So that's what I went with for the year. So this album is actually a combination of both the Hardcore Pride EP and their 1995 demo, both released independently at the time and then collected and put out together. The original demo was released in 1995. It's called like 95 Demo. Originally released as a self-released tape, but then released on 7-inch in Italy on SOA Records. And then Hardcore Pride was released originally on 7-inch vinyl by Big Wheel Recreation, and then again on CD and cassette by Equal Vision Records with the demo packaged together. So that's probably why we have so many conflicting dates, is the 7-inch probably came out in 95, and then the comp probably came out, the CD came out in 96. That's my reading of it, but could be wrong. But the personnel on the demo is John LaCroix on bass, Ben Chust on drums, Anthony Papalardo on guitar, and Anthony Wrench Moreshi on vocals, and was produced by Brian McTiernan. And the Hardcore Pride personnel is LaCroix on bass, Papalardo on guitar, Moreshi on vocals, Ryan Murphy on drums, and Chris Patterson on guitar, and was also produced by Brian McTiernan. So that's it as far as like stats. We'll pause that from now. But before we get into the actual record, I do want to read what Philip said about it. So he asked me if we'd ever covered 10-Yard Fights, Hardcore Pride. I said nope. In fact, we don't know much about them. So his response was, let's do it. I think I owe it to this band to have this be my album, because without this band, I wouldn't have explored more. If I could ask, please, I want to give my cousin Danny a shout out on the podcast. We are 10 years apart, but one night he posted on Facebook that he was at a Jawbreaker show. I said I didn't know he was into punk, and it led us to sharing our favorite bands and moments. He invited me to Furnace Fest 2 years ago, and we have rekindled our family connection because of punk music and sharing. Thanks, guys. Y'all rock. So I thought that was a pretty nice little story. I like the idea of reconnecting with family members over music connections. And kind of reminds me, our cousin just created an Instagram not too long ago, and then he added me not too long after that, and then messaged me and was like, "You still into like metal and punk and stuff like that?" I was like, "Yeah." And then he said, "Yeah, Dylan doesn't listen to as much of that as he used to. It's more it's like country and jazz."
I talk to him all the time. What's he talking about?
But yeah, so yeah, I really appreciate Phillips for sending that, Patreon tier, and choosing this for us to talk about. So yeah, 10-Yard Fight. What is your experience with this band?
None. No experience with this band. I've heard the name, but yeah, I don't think I've ever listened to them before.
No, I same. No experience with this band prior to this. It's a name I knew, I recognized the name, but I'd never listened to them before. And I didn't really know too many people who were really big fans of them either. I did also kind of reach out to a couple people just to kind of see them hey, what do you have any ties to this band or connections to this band? And one response was, nope, never heard of them. So that was a funny one. And then the other response was kind of going over general history about them as far as the scene they were part of and all of that. So yeah, not really. No experience with this band whatsoever. So clean slate going into this one. I had no previous expectations on what to expect going into it or any of that kind of stuff.
Which is funny because I was just looking at Rate Your Music, the related artists. It's like every Boston band. It's like American Nightmare, Bane, Bars, Battery, Ensign, Give Up the Ghost is American Nightmare. The Helm, The Hope Conspiracy, In My Eyes, Nothing Left, Reach the Sky, Resist, Stand and Fight, Undertow, The Vows. It's just they were heavily involved with that scene, but for some reason I've never heard this band specifically.
Yeah. They were part of the Youth Crew revival of the 90s, the second wave of Youth Crew. Some of the members have feelings on that we'll get into later, but I guess I just never really followed up. When I was getting into Youth Crew stuff, like Youth of Today and Side by Side and Gorilla Biscuits and stuff like that, I never really looked past that initial wave of stuff. That stuff was late 80s, early 90s when that was happening. And so it makes sense for there to be another wave of it later, but it never really dawned on me. I was more familiar with the later wave, I guess you would call it third wave Youth Crew, the more Have Heart era, that kind of stuff, late 90s, early 2000s wave of Youth Crew. Just somehow this one I had a huge blind spot for this type of Youth Crew and hardcore. But one thing we did have in common with this band is we were straight edge at one point. I learned the phrase straight edge on the Demon Hunter message boards. Someone in there was like, I'm straight edge. And I asked, I was like, what does that mean? And they were like, yeah, it just means you don't drink or do drugs. And then I was like, I don't drink or do drugs. I must be a straight edge.
I'm a teenage homeschooler on a Christian metal band forum.
Yeah, it's real easy to be straight edge when you have no access to anything as far as alcohol or anything like that. Yeah, definitely was straight edge through my teen years and early 20s. But I did wind up breaking edge around 22. Oh, it was 22. I didn't do the stereotypical thing and break edge at 21 like like everyone does. I waited at least another year, and I broke edge because like the person well, there's a couple reasons why I broke edge.
Well, if you're not now, you never were.
Well, there's that. Yes. I love that kind of thing. It's like, yeah, that's no nuance in that at all whatsoever. That's so funny. It's just very hard line.
That seems counterproductive.
Yeah, in college I had a girlfriend who like she did like to drink, and she was like from a culture that like drinking was not that big of a deal as far as like age restrictions. I think she was from Ecuador, so I think it's probably like 18 there to drink.
Yeah, like everywhere else.
Most of the world
basically, which is like what makes the most sense. Like, honestly.
Yeah. So she drank, and then I was straight edge, and then always like I sucked. When I was straight edge, I sucked. I was a killjoy. I was a buzzkill, literally. Like, just didn't know how to handle it. I wasn't good at it. I got like bothered by drinking and stuff like that. Not really bothered by smoking, which I found pretty funny.
Well, you're used to it. You'd be around smoking.
Yeah.
Like, it was inescapable in the South. I mean, our parents smoked when we were kids, so it was very normalized to see it. Like, it was definitely something that we could like make the cognitive decision to be like, oh, I'm against smoking. Like, but you weren't. Yeah, you saw it so much that it was just like hard to be that bothered by it. Like, you could just be mildly annoyed by it. It's like you want to get away from it. Yeah, but alcohol, we didn't see a lot of alcohol growing up. Our parents didn't drink, and some of our family did, but like usually when they were getting to the point of having too much to drink, our dad wanted to leave, so we weren't really around it a lot. And like it was only a few people in our family that did drink.
Yeah.
Drinking culture in the South is pretty different too.
Yeah.
From a lot of other places. Like drinking culture in the South to me is mostly just like rednecks and cheap beer.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get more sophisticated if you get into like bourbon country, but yeah, it's more redneck behavior in the South. It's definitely looked down upon culturally.
Yeah, I feel like it maybe used to be that way. Now it's not. Now you got like breweries everywhere, and now it's like that. It's changed. I'd say probably within the last 10 years it's changed a bit in this area.
That was happening when we were becoming like when I was going into college is when it was like Asheville was like beer city USA. Yeah. Like, you know, it was like where craft breweries were becoming a thing in North Carolina. And that transition happened with us being late teenagers and early 20s. That wasn't something that was very normal yet. It was on the way.
Yeah.
To being a little bit more normalized and being a little less of like a lower class thing. Yeah. So I don't. Also, like someone who's drunk is more annoying than someone who's smoking a cigarette.
Yeah. So I eventually did break edge at, like I said, at 22. I wanted to do it for a while because I just didn't like how I was as a straight edge person. Not all straight edge people are like that, but it sucked. So that's really the main reason why I kind of want to be like, all right, let's break this edge and see what the deal is with all this other stuff.
I broke edge underage.
Yeah.
When you're supposed to.
Yeah.
When it still has some power. Yeah, my first alcohol was which is, speaking of like Asheville and like breweries, like I went to a bar with some friends from college, and it was like me and my friend who were both underage were like sitting with them. So we're like, we have nothing to do, nothing to drink. And they got like flights of beers, and they just kind of like looked around, and then they just kind of like pointed at them. So we took like a couple of sips of each different beer that they had. So that was my edge break, was drinking craft beer flights underage in a bar in Asheville, which is like not getting drunk.
you had the like sampling local beers like as this your intro. It's like,
I did have the more rebellious. Me and my friend finished off his roommate's bottle of whatever it was some flavored Smirnoff or not Smirnoff, just like some flavored vodka. It tasted awful. There was like 2 shots left in the bottle.
Yeah,
probably, and we just like finished it in our dorm room at our dry Christian college campus in our last semester of school.
Yeah. So we have dabbled in some straight edgery there, and
it's funny. Like I think about being straight edge, like it totally was just like. Well, it's funny that we say that we were straight edge, but we've never heard 10 Yard Fight. It's like we were straight edge, but we didn't deep dive on every single straight edge band, which I feel like is the thing that you're supposed to do when you're straight edge. You're like, I will listen to every straight edge hardcore band. Like that's my identity. This is all I listened to. But we didn't. We listened to a handful of straight edge bands. And
Minor Threat, Gorilla Biscuits, Ex-Disciple XAD, who was more of a Jesus band than a straight edge band, even though they had X's in their names. Their songs were about Jesus.
Yeah.
What else? Is it,
X Looking Forward X.
Yeah, that was the other one.
Oh, their Face Down band. Yeah, it was. I don't know. It was an identity that we really wanted to claim, but we had like no one else. I mean, our friend, our still straight edge friends were it, but they weren't even like, I don't know. I feel like even for them, it was pretty passive.
Yeah.
But I mean, just being in a hardcore scene in a small city in North Carolina, I mean, it's just like, yep, those are the two.
Yeah.
It's not like a youth crew gang, basically, of straight edgers. Like, I don't know. It's one of those things that I just felt like I wanted to be affiliated with something, I think, more than I really cared so much about the ideas of it. But at that time, I was like, yeah, I'm not interested in those things. And it was like mostly just because I didn't really have a reason to really even want to drink or smoke. Like, there wasn't a social group that I was in at all at that age where that was much of an option.
Yeah.
And then when I was like around people smoking pot for the first few times, I'm like, oh, that doesn't look interesting. So this is easy to avoid and not break edge for.
Yeah. Well, let's get into a little bit of the backstory about this band. So, I really like this piece. It is from the All Music bio. It was written by Ryan Downey.
Oh, weird.
The manager of Zayo and Demon Hunter. Also, was at the Source Awards where Suge Knight got shot. Was that what it was? Or Suge Knight shot someone? Anyway, he was reporting on it, but he was there. So 10 Yard Fight reinvigorated the stiff and nearly forgotten genre of fast-paced, upbeat, sing-along straight-edge hardcore almost all by themselves. As heralds of what would become the old-school revival movement, they championed not only the drug-free lifestyle, but their hometown in a way that reminiscent of scene forerunners Wolfpack, DYS, and SSD, or Washington, D.C.'s Minor Threat. So, prior to 10 Yard Fight, their drummer, Ben Chust, also played in the band Battery, and then he would leave the band and then go play in the band Bane. And then he is replaced by Ryan Murphy, who had played in Undertow at that point, and then later in the band Ensign. And then the vocalist, this was his very first band. So the first band he was ever in was the one he fronted. So Papalardo and LaCroix were in a band prior to 10 Yard Fight called Reason to Change that was very inspired by Shelter and like a partly Krishnacore band. And so they started this other band kind of as a joke. Tongue in cheek was kind of how they were thinking of it, but it was a band that was like full of football references. Like they named things like, let's see.
Well, the name of the band is a reference to the every 10 yards is a first down.
Yeah, and I think there's a video game called 10 Yard Fight.
Yeah, there was a video game.
But like the demo had songs called First and 10, Line of Scrimmage, Offsides, So they were gimmicky football, and the lead singer, when they played their very first show, wore a combination of football clothes crossed with punk themed clothing. I don't understand what that even looked like. Like, I can't even imagine what football crossed with punk would look like. I couldn't find any pictures either. But the crowd reaction was so good, people were really into it, that they decided, oh, okay, let's take this a little bit more seriously and actually do something. So they recorded the demo 95 demo, that wound up selling over 1,000 copies. They sold so many copies of that demo. So they then joined Big Wheel Recreation, and they released the 7-inch Hardcore Pride, which sold out in a single week. And that created enough buzz for them to get signed by Equal Vision Records. And so then Equal Vision decided, well, let's combine the 7-inch and the demo together on a CD. And so that is the version of the album that is on Spotify. It is the EP and the demo together. I think this is how most people know these songs anyway. They know them together as one. Unless you were like in Boston at the time, you probably weren't able to get a hold of the 7-inch version. So the CD would be the wider distributed one. And they were part of the second wave of Youth Crew alongside bands like In My Eyes and Floor Punch. Papalardo actually later joins In My Eyes. He wound up getting kicked out of 10 Yard Fight because the way he described it, he was like, I was the nail that stuck up. I was the one that like complained the most about what they were doing and, why they were doing these things. And eventually they were just like, I don't think we need you. And so they kicked him out and kept doing what they were doing. But he is one of the members who really didn't like the Youth Crew Revival tag, because his big thing was like, what 10 Yard Fight or In My Eyes songs sound anything like youth of today? Like he had a really strong belief that like we didn't sound anything like it. We just happened to be straight edge and more melodic than the hardcore that was going on around us. Like just not that kind of thing. Because during this time, hardcore, it was doing like the more metallic sounding, like Earth Crisis-y type stuff, or they were doing like Discord DC style hardcore. So that was what was going on back then. And so, yeah, they were just essentially a local band. They only existed for a couple years. They weren't existed for like 4 years. They toured, but they weren't huge outside of like straight edge and that type of hardcore. So I think they felt much more regional at the time. But they were one of the first of this second wave of Youth Crew. So they were definitely really influential on a lot of that kind of stuff that was coming out after them. Because like 97 is like the year that they say that like Youth Crew Revival really blew up. And they put out their LP that year. Like the In My Eyes LP, I think, is that same year too. So like it's a big moment for that kind of stuff. So what did you think of this?
I think it's good. I think they're a good band. I think that it's not something that I reach for a lot. I don't think they're really as melodic as maybe they're made out to be. I think they're a little samey in terms of like, there's not a lot of variety from song to song. There's really not a lot of, and it's mostly just like there's not like a wide range of dynamics. There's not really, there's not a range of vocalization, which is not something you necessarily expect from hardcore. But I don't think that I don't know if they couldn't or if they just didn't have any interest in doing a lot of different things. And that's probably where like I'm not really going to get mileage out of it in terms of like wanting to come back to it or wanting to hear more of them. But it sounds good and it's not long, like, it's the right length to be as samey as it is. And that's kind of with hardcore. Like any hardcore that falls into what I would categorize as like a straightforward hardcore sound, I don't want I don't really want more than 25 minutes. You know, I think when you're in and out quick with a bunch of fast songs, that's pretty effective, pretty efficient. But like if I hear it, like if I hear an individual song, I'm like, pick scrapes, fast riffs, vocals sound cool. I'm like, yeah, it's a good sound. It's just kind of like that one sound.
Yeah, as far as the melodic thing, like, yeah, they're one of the big like signifiers of Youth Crew is that it's much more melodic. It's a little catchier, more anthemic too, I guess, is part of that as well. And like they're not that melodic. They're not that catchy. There are some gang vocals, some group vocals. That's probably the stuff that probably pops the most in a live setting, like the gang vocal stuff. But yeah, it's not like that melodic to the point where I'm just like, that's interesting. Like I kind of understand like the guitar players, like, we don't sound like Youth of Today. We're not doing that. You know, we just happen to just be straight edge.
Yeah, the gang vocals, but other than that, there's not really much of like a sing-alongable element to the vocals. They don't really have that much melody. And I mean, even the guitar lines like aren't that melodic. A lot of the guitar playing, especially on the album Back on Track, are much more metallic, which fits with, hardcore of the time period.
Yeah. I do think you're right though. Like everything in the band sounds good. Like everybody sounds tight. Everybody sounds really good. This is a band though that kind of is known for like member lineups and like different, people in the group at certain times of the band. It looks like on the LP Back on Track, they brought back the drummer Ben Chust to play on it. He's not on the Hardcore Pride, but he's on the demo and the LP, and he's on the final EP as well. For Hardcore Pride, they added a second guitarist, and that's Chris Patterson. He's playing second guitar on the record, and then for he's the only guitarist on Back on Track. So they're back to a single guitarist on Back on Track.
Yeah.
And then for the Only Way, the final EP, they have another guitar. They have two guitars again. This time they have Tim Kosser. Tim Kosser was in American Nightmare.
Right. Yeah. He's one of the guys that started American Nightmare.
Yeah, and he was in like Hope Conspiracy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they brought in a bassist, Brian Clevo Ristow, who he was in some other bands, Right Brigade and Stop and Think. So really, like the only like constant members are John LaCroix and Mareshi on vocals. Those are the two main constants throughout the band. It's funny that the LP sounds more metallic than the EP does, and the EP has two guitar players, but the LP only has the one. So that's kind of funny. And it's the same guitar player. Like it's not like.
Well, the EP, you definitely notice that there's two guitar players. Like it's fuller sounding and it's punchier and like it's much more guitar like forward. The riffs just themselves are constructed in a slightly more metallic way. They're a little more riffy and a lot less like kind of like straightforward melodic hardcore driving kind of guitars. There's a little more rhythmic technicality, syncopation, I guess, to some of the riffing. A little more like lead forward parts, which is, kind of hard to say it's lead when it's one guitarist, but
yeah. Oh, I was wrong though. The Only Way, the last EP they did, John LaCroix switched from bass to play guitar. So there's two guitars on that, but neither one of them were the guitar player prior to it. So John switched from bass to guitar. So I wonder how different that one sounds. I didn't listen to that. I really enjoyed. So this is the EP and the demo. I didn't take notes on the demo. I did listen to the demo a couple times, but I just didn't take notes for it. But with the EP, I really enjoyed the second track, Forever. Has such an awesome intro riff to it. And this is like, oh, this is what you needed two guitar players for, to get this kind of sound. I don't even really know how to describe that sound. It's just a really cool, very metallic sounding riff. And that song's got a really cool groove to it that I imagine works perfectly for like two-stepping. Believe has like starts off with the pick scrape. It's a fast-paced track. They're all pretty fast-paced songs. I don't think they have any that are slow. I think Holding On, it's like clearly like, oh yeah, this is the last song on the 7-inch. So like we're doing a little bit more dynamic of a song to wrap things up with. It's a little slower. It's got the big floor tom drum intro, more pick scrapes on that one, more gang vocals on that one.
Yeah. I like Holding On. I think it's the variety that it needs. The slower tempo, the more chuggy opening riff, I think it's a strong song. I think it's a good ending too. And I think Proud to Be Straight also gives you a little bit of variety with, like, we're going to start on the bass on this one, Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the variety that you get with a hardcore band, I guess, typically. But
this one, we start with the bass.
Yeah.
Oh, this one's just the drums. Like, everybody gets a different starting point.
But I think, it's the songs do then just kind of fall into the, well, na-na-na-na-na-na-na.
Yeah, they all do. Like, they all have different intros, but once you get to like the verses, it's like, oh, yep, here we go. Da-da-da-da-da-da.
And I think that's just generally where I don't get a lot of enjoyment out of this kind of hardcore. Is it kind of always has to get to that point. I don't know. It's hard to really differentiate on that basic like sense of rhythm.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that comes from it. Hardcore music is basically dance music. Like, the idea of hardcore music performed live is so the crowd can, like, back then probably, push mosh or circle pit or that kind of thing. And then later to like actually like do hardcore dancing too. So like, to me, that's why hardcore has so frequently has like the same kind of thing going on through the verses for the most part. The really good ones tend to have a good chorus for everybody to sing along with. But yeah, you want those verses to be fast so that everybody can pit or mosh or dance. And then, you want the choruses so that everybody can sing along with it, pointing their fingers in the sky, try and grab the microphone and yell into a mic. So that's also why so many times when a band kind of pivots away from like hardcore, they get called like sellouts or they suck now, because it's like, yeah, they stopped doing the thing for you to dance to.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of the point of the genre is to really just be like, yeah, it's a great live show. It's a great fun show. The crowds are fun. The thing that I guess you put all your creativity into is like coming up with like interesting different ways to start each song and like maybe coming up with different choruses. I don't know that they necessarily pull off like choruses on this that stand out drastically. They're solid, but they're not like anything that like, oh, listen to that hook, not really on this. To me, all the standouts on here are like the openings of all these songs.
I mean, with that being said, though, like, it is always satisfying when it's like fast, half tempo, 2-step groove. Like,
yeah.
When you make that, like, it's predictable, it's easy, but like, it's fucking satisfying. Like, when you do that, when you just like, we set it up and then we knocked it out. Like, we've got your 2-step coming. It makes you want to. I've never been into dancing, but it's like when you hit that groove, it's like, yeah, doing my Randall, bobbing your shoulders, just kind of like, ooh, feel the groove. Like, it's like I also never got into hardcore dancing. I hated hardcore dancing when I was first getting into like hardcore and going to shows, and like so that's been something that's always kind of kept me a little out of the loop with hardcore. Is it's like, yeah, I'm not into that dance aspect of it, so I don't have as much attachment to it and have as much of an expectation for that sound because I'm not dancing to it. So
yeah, I've never been a fan of hardcore dancing. I still don't like it. I don't like it now because I'm old, but I didn't like it then because I didn't think it looked cool. Like I was always just like, I don't think this is cool. I don't know why people do this. And that's why they do it, because they think it looks cool and they want to look cool too. But yeah, I never thought it was a cool looking thing. I get pits to a degree, especially when you're young. I get it. Now I don't want to be in a pit because God, I don't want to be bumped around and sweaty and like sweatier than I'm going to be because I'm already inside this hot venue anyway as it is.
Yeah.
And, like, I just want to stand here and enjoy the music. So that's just
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just old. I don't want to fall down.
yeah.
I don't
Right.
I don't want to get hit. It doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
I'm weak, and that's why. I'm soft. I am not hardcore.
No, don't hit me.
Ouch.
Ouchie. Yeah.
I think though, like hardcore dancing especially got so pervasive in that time period that we were getting into metal and hardcore and metalcore and going to shows that it was just like, is it always appropriate to hardcore dance? I don't think so. I think that hardcore dancing became something that was like the expectation for everyone to do at all times at every show, and I'm like, this isn't a part to dance to. I don't know. I think you've taken something and stretched it beyond where it belonged and where it fit, and just kind of like made it everyone else's problem.
If I see you, we're gonna have a problem. Deesh. Yeah, I think songwriting, it's technically just an EP. The demo stuff, like it's good. It actually, for a demo, they sound really good.
It sounds like 10% more raw. Like it's just like it sounds really good for a demo.
I mean, it's because it was recorded by Brian McTiernan. Like that's why it sounded good. Everything sounds good when he does it. I did look at what he was doing around this time, and in '95 he had done he did Texas is the Reason, Walleye, and Opposition. So he'd done a couple things in '95. Not quite as hardcore, really.
Yeah. The difference probably is really just like better isolation in the amps. Because honestly, I wouldn't even be surprised if they just recorded the EP live together. Like, I wonder if they'd multi-tracked it. Like, probably not. They probably did it pretty cheap and quick and just played it all together. But the EP, they would have just like taken the extra time to isolate the amps and like get really ideal mic placement on the drums and, deal with all of the acoustic issues in the room. And also just like probably more takes. Whereas with the demo, you're like, oh, did we finish the song? Okay. Without a major issue? Okay. Then the demo's done.
Yeah.
It's like, let's throw mics up real quick. Like, it's good enough.
I do think, though, like the record starts off with this cymbal that sounds so shitty. That cymbal sounds so bad. I don't know if that's just like, I don't know, the recording or what, the playing, but I just think that's really funny. He has a little bit of the on his vocals. He's got a little bit of that speech impediment sort of thing going on, especially like on Hardcore Pride, where he says "hardcore pride" is what it sounds like he's saying. Hardcore, the soft R's that you get in a lot of those accents.
What is that? Non-rhotic, denoting a dialect of English in which R is pronounced in prevocalic position only. Common in New England, New York City, Britain,
yeah.
Those are the non-rhotic accents.
Yeah, I think all these songs are good. I think they're all good. There's nothing on here that I was like, ugh, this sucks. Like, there's nothing I disliked on here, but there also wasn't a ton that like really stood out to me as like, oh, I love that. Like, Forever was probably my favorite song on the whole thing, and then I'd rate every other track pretty much the same across the board. Like, I think it's a fun EP. I think it's really solid. And then I'm thankful that they included the demo here just to kind of like, give it a little bit more, padding. Because with the demo and the EP combined, it's still only 23 minutes long. Like it's not a long record. Doesn't take much to finish. I've listened to it. I've listened to it 3 times all the way through. And then like part of it again. So I may even listen to the EP 4 times all the way through, but maybe not the demo. So I listened to it a lot. You say all the time like it's hard to talk about hardcore music on this show, and I think it can be hard. I think it depends on what else you got going on with the story, I guess, of the band. And this band is really important, especially to straight edge. So they wind up releasing another LP. They wind up releasing an LP.
The LP is like 25 minutes long.
Yeah, back on track in '97. They did the 6-song EP, The Only Way, in '98. And then in 1999, they did their final show, which was October 17th, which subsequently has become the date of Straight Edge Day. So Straight Edge Day is in honor of the final 10-yard fight show, which if you told me that when I was first hearing about Edge Day, like 10 years ago or whatever, I would have been like, 10-yard fights the band that people are like, that's why they chose the date, because of them? I think it's just a timing thing. I don't know exactly why it would have been them. I feel like there were bigger straight edge bands in the 90s than them. But also they tended to be other things too, right? Like Earth Crisis is more known for being a vegan. Like they're a vegan straight edge band, but the vegan stuff is the bigger stuff with them.
Well, the show included Bane, In My Eyes, Reach the Sky, and Floor Punch. It was called Edge Fest.
So that makes a little more sense.
The idea was that it was just going to be a hardcore show of straight edge bands, and then they just started doing it on the same date every year in Boston, and it became Edge Day there, and then everyone just kind of like ran with that. Like,
do you remember when like the people we knew from like the Asheville scene and like where everybody was like, oh, it's Edge Day, and everybody was celebrating Edge Day and talking about being Edge and all this other stuff, and how now like maybe one of them is still Edge, including us, and also including members of the band 10-Yard Fight. So right. John LaCroix wrote something that became famous as the Edge Confession. He wrote a letter, I guess, to the internet. I don't know where this letter was published, but he basically confessed, yeah, I'm not Edge anymore. And then like another letter came out from their former driver, for their tour driver. And I was like, that doesn't matter. Who cares?
Nobody cares.
Like, but he also then came out as I broke Edge. And I don't know how many of them claim Edge anymore. Probably not very many. But the only two, anytime they do anything now, they have done some one-off stuff. It's like Mareshi and LaCroix are like the only original members who are still part of it. So Mareshi might still be Edge. Who knows? But I do remember, though. I remember telling our friends that I wasn't Edge anymore and being so nervous about it. Like, I was worried about telling them. And they were fine. They were just like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, the Edge scene that we were, the people that we knew that were straight edge were much more just like, it was just like a personal, like, lifestyle choice. It wasn't, I don't know. It wasn't like, there wasn't any pressure to do it.
Yeah. It was not hugely popular in the area anyway. So yeah, I don't know. I do think it's good. I enjoyed it. I did listen to some of the contemporaries. I listened to In My Eyes and I listened to Floor Punch. I listened to the Mouthpiece too. Mouthpiece apparently were a little earlier, but also part of that same, like, I think they might have been Boston too, but they were a little earlier, and Mouthpiece probably was doing a little closer to this Youth Crew revival. I don't know exactly where. Yeah. Spotify bio says nothing about where Mouthpiece was from.
Well, I think with every genre of music, that Youth Crew revival or second wave Youth Crew was real because the bands didn't like being called it.
Yeah, you're right. Mouthpiece were from New Jersey, so they're a little different, little different area. But yeah, that's always the thing too. It's like, don't call us that. That's a hallmark rock as a true genre. Don't call us that. Okay, that's what you are now. You just so you know, you resisting made us want to call you that even more.
Well, that just locks it in.
No. You don't get to decide. Because anytime a band ever tried to like do their own, like this is our genre, we call it this. No, It doesn't stick. Nobody calls that. Holy Terror is about the only one that I actually worked with, and that's still only like 3 bands.
Yeah,
I do remember being in a record store once, and it was Lunchbox, and I was in there with our friend Grant, who is straight edge. He's still straight edge to this day, And the guy running it is Scott Wissert, who ran Lunchbox Records with his brother, which put out the Hala Shaddad and Car vs. Driver, and who we spoke to. And like Scott
plays in Late Bloomer.
Yep, he's in Late Bloomer now. Yep,
and was just on Spinning Out.
He was, but Grant, I guess, was selling him some records, and Scott knows Grant is straight edge, and he said something about Floor Punch, and Grant was like, "Nah, I never really listened to them." And Scott was like, "You're straight edge, and you didn't listen to Floor Punch?" What? He was just shocked that someone could be straight edge and never listen to Floor Punch. And Scott's a little older than Grant, so like I could see that being why. Different timeline. But I did ask friend of the show, Jason. I was asking him, what are your thoughts on 10-Yard Fight? And one of his responses was, I told him like, I was getting in a hardcore mood because I was listening to stuff from that year. And he said, I'd suggest Better Than 1,000 and Rain on the Parade and the first Fast Break album. I would never recommend Floor Punch record, but they were around at the same time. I did listen to the Floor Punch record from around this period, and I was like, it's pretty good. I don't know why was he saying not to listen to it? I don't understand. I don't know if they're just, I don't know anything about them. Maybe there's something like, oh, those guys suck.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Floor Punch is probably the most militant from that scene. I wouldn't be surprised if that's why. They're just like, oh, shut up.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think this was a good choice. I appreciate Phillips, you for signing up for the Patreon and choosing this album for us to talk about, because Dylan and I never would have selected this album. One, because it doesn't show up as an LP on Rate Your Music, so we would have missed it. But I guess they have another LP that we could have potentially got, but I don't know that you and I would have been motivated to listen to a record by them and talk about it unless someone said, hey, you should listen to this and talk about it. So thank you for choosing something outside of our normal purview, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I thought it was a really solid record. You want to rate it?
Sure.
I'm gonna give it a 3.75. That's how I rated most of the songs individually, and then I rated Forever a 4.25 as a track. Not quite enough to get it to a 4, but I did really enjoy it. But yeah, what do you think?
I think it's a 3.5. It's probably pretty solid. Not enough to get me over the line of I gotta remember my football terms. Line of scrimmage is you have to get over the line of scrimmage, otherwise you're losing yards. Yeah, not enough for a first down conversion, but
you played football for like 6 years.
I know. And then I chucked all of it out of my brain.
Yeah, not enough to get you a fourth down. It looks like you're gonna have to punt on this one. Yeah, apparently, like, one of the things that the guitar player was complaining about was like, we're a football themed band, but we got basketball jerseys made. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. It's like, that's true. That's true. Basketball jerseys were in hardcore. Football jerseys weren't. So I thought that was funny.
Yeah, because you see somebody wearing a football jersey in public, like, that doesn't make sense. Are you going to a football game?
Yeah. I mean, I know a handful of people who wear them, but not a lot. It is more like you see more baseball or basketball than you do.
Even hockey jerseys.
It's got to be a little colder, but yeah.
Yeah.
They're all long sleeves. But yeah, that's true. All right. Well, I don't think we've ever been. Well, okay. There was that one record we got assigned, the FYP record, where we knew going in we weren't going to like it. And he knew too. So that's why he made us listen to it. So otherwise, all the other Patreon selected records have all been positive. So we're on a streak. We do have one that we know we're not going to like that's coming up soon. So not sure when we'll drop that one, but we're going to get in trouble for that one. But I think that will do it.
Well, we might get in trouble for this one.
We might. We talked about breaking edge at the beginning and how you're supposed to break edge. So
yeah. But I don't know. Members of 10-Yard Fight broke edge too. So
yeah. I also don't think our patron is edge either. So like, I don't think.
Yeah. He didn't say anything about straight edge being the reason that he loved this band or
right.
got more into punk. So yeah.
So we might get in trouble, but worth it, I guess. But Well, that'll do it this week. Like I said, patreon.com/punklautopod. The new tier will be there. We will announce shortly what album we will be talking about for the month and how to get on the call. We haven't decided if we'll do Zoom or Skype. Zoom probably, just because everybody seems to have it. And then you can follow us on all forms of social media at punklautopod, punklautopod@gmail.com, and our voicemail line 202-688-PUNK. So thank you all so much, and we will talk to you next time.
To order Punk, call the number on your screen. Rush delivery is available. Remember, this special offer is not sold in stores.